Next Pats podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. Meaty episode for you this week. We're emptying the notebook on Mac Jones, Bill Belichick, that entire situation after that report from Mike Florio that the Patriots have shopped their first-round pick from 2 drafts ago, 2021, dropped earlier this week. We're also going to be talking some draft, of course, getting back to the core of what this podcast is about. And we're going to talk about some mock drafts that have popped up, some big names in the mock draft space with some really interesting decisions for the Patriots in the first round, including one in particular where the Patriots trade down. And that's going to lead us to a game where we play a little would you rather. And we're going to talk about that 14 overall pick, but we're just going to talk about approach in the first round in general for the Patriots as it relates to this year's class specifically. And we're going to talk, would you rather trade up maybe into the top 10? Feasible given where they sit at 14 and get a position of need there, whether it's corner, receiver, tackle, those positions, those premium positions that we've been talking about quite a bit during this pre-draft process. Would you rather stand pat at 14 overall and consider your options there? Or would you rather trade down? And I think you're going to be fascinated to see which of those 3 options ends up sounding best to you by the end of the podcast. But wait, that's not the end of the podcast. The end of the podcast is featuring our guy, Tyler Scott, one of my favorite receivers in this year's draft class at the University of Cincinnati, undersized but outsized athletic ability, an explosive option that you could use all over the offensive formation if you're Bill O'Brien, inside, outside, speed to burn, former running back. Great discussion with Tyler Scott, a really fascinating day 2 option for the Patriots, potentially, if they don't go with receiver in round 1. So that will finish up the pod. But let's get right to it now with our discussion on Mac Jones. And I'm just going to lay out 5 different bullet points for you all. Again, based on conversations that I've had with people with the team, around the team, familiar with the situation. And here's what I've come up with. Number 1, the word quote unquote shopped that Mike Florio used in his report felt like an overstatement, according to one team source. Best as this person could tell, there was a real evaluation of Jones earlier this offseason. Is he the right guy for the job? Can he be the leader the Patriots need? How do they get him back to being the Mac Jones that we saw in 2021? How do they separate Mac Jones, the individual, from the environment that he was in 2022? Even if Bill Belichick thinks the coaching was fine last year, especially by the end, and I've actually heard that that's probably how he feels about it, Belichick would have to acknowledge that the coaching and the butting of heads that resulted from that coaching decision made evaluating Mac's 2022, his second season, really, really difficult. That's how it was described to me. Bottom line, regardless of how aggressively a Mac Jones trade was discussed with other teams, those questions being asked during that evaluation process are indicative of a team, and specifically a head coach, not being 100% sold on their first-round pick from 2021. Note number 2, several senior-level people inside the building who you might think would know about a potential quarterback trade had heard nothing of the sort when I reached out to them this week. However, they also made sure to emphasize to me the following: Bill's gonna Bill. Meaning, essentially, Bill Belichick operates at times as a one-man front office. He takes a one-voice approach and has for a very long time. He doesn't want others to know what he's considering when it comes to certain team-building moves, in part so that those potential team-building moves don't leak out into the public sphere. How many times over the years has a splashy move come down from the heavens seemingly out of nowhere here in New England? Jimmy Garoppolo traded. Logan Mankins traded. That led to some really emotional reactions inside the building at One Patriot Place when that happened before the 2014 season. There have been oodles of them over the years. This is how Bill Belichick typically functions. Many times, he's the only one who knows what he's considering, including ownership, by the way. And if there are calls being made in Bill Belichick's office when he's alone in there, it's not as though he's sharing the contents of those calls in personnel meetings soon thereafter. So again, it was emphasized to me, if Mac Jones was shopped, few, if any, in the building would truly know about it outside of Bill Belichick. Okay, note number 3 here. I heard what I would best describe as sort of a collective rolling of eyes from folks with the team on Mac seeking out help and potentially being traded in part because of that. What I've been told from a variety of different folks with the team, formerly with the team, understanding of the situation, watching the situation from afar, they will put it very plainly. They don't believe Mac Jones was being coached last year. And so Mac Jones reached out to people for some coaching. And the rolling of eyes that I hear is when that situation gets laid out, and that is my understanding of it. Tom has reported on this as well. It started with Chris Sims months ago talking about Mac Jones making calls and trying to get help for the Patriots offense. When that scenario is laid out, people look at that and say, okay, I get it. You're not looking for your players to do that, but he wasn't being coached. He sought out coaching, and now he's the problem? What are we talking about here? Are there concerns about Mac Jones's leadership? Did he have to be encouraged to put an end to some of the on-field emotional demonstrations that we saw late in the year? Yes. But folks in the building understand he was in an adverse situation, and that is putting it gently. It's really difficult to hold it against him that he tried to fix it on his own. He felt, this is how people view this, that Mac Jones felt as though he had exhausted all options available to him in the building. So he went out and pursued improvement elsewhere. And he might be punished because of that. He might be traded because of that. That's him writing his own ticket out of town. There's an absurdity to all of this that is not lost on Patriots employees. Note number 4. I've spoken to players who are not happy that this is in the news, that the Patriots and their potential interest in trading Mac Jones is out there in the public sphere. They aren't happy on Mac's behalf. They aren't happy, period, on their own behalves. They're not happy that 2022 is bleeding into 2023. This should be an opportunity at a fresh start for the Patriots offense. New coordinator, new offense, old offense, different offense from last year. Let's dive into it. Let's get better. Let's have a starting quarterback that we feel good about. Let's follow him. Let's see if he can be the leader we want him to be. Let's at least make it seem as though there's a rudder on this ship. I believe that's how Patriots players feel right now. Because that would be a fresh feeling after 2022. But now this is hovering over the proceedings in Foxborough. And there will be proceedings in Foxborough quite soon. The offseason program begins in less than 2 weeks. And now this has been dropped into the mix and into everyone's laps. And so there will be questions asked about the quarterback situation, Zappe versus Jones. How does the team feel about Jones? Whereas players believe this was easily avoidable. Note number 5. My belief is, after all these conversations, my belief is right now that Mac Jones will be the starting quarterback for the Patriots in 2023. So all of this discussion, now that we've had it, the fact that this is out there in the public sphere, all of that said, I believe he'll be here. The expectation is that he'll be here. If not, number 1, who's the answer? It's not going to be Lamar Jackson, is my understanding. The money, the offensive fit, the injury history, it's not going to be Lamar. People don't believe that it can be Bailey Zappe. Bailey Zappe is viewed as a backup quarterback. Could it be a rookie? To me, the best fit for the Patriots is Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee, but he's coming off an injury. He's not going to be ready to compete through camp, through the sprint, any of that. So the answer there would be no for 2023. The expectation is Mac Jones will be the starting quarterback. Though the belief in the building is that he still needs help to be able to get to where they want him on the field. Bill O'Brien, probably not enough. He needs another weapon. He needs somebody to throw to on third down. He needs somebody who's going to scare a defense. The way one assistant put it to me recently, Ramondre Stevenson is really the one player that an opposing defense had to game plan for the Patriots last year. That has not changed with the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki, though I think both could be fine additions. They just aren't that level of player. And even with the Juju Smith-Schuster deal, I still sense some confusion around his acquisition and the choice that was made apparently between Smith-Schuster and Jacoby Myers. Now, Myers ended up getting the better contract, so it could have come down to purely money. And that's how I understood it at the time. It wasn't as though they preferred necessarily Juju Smith-Schuster over Myers. It was that he was the alternative. And the reality is, based on the contracts, even though it's not a huge discrepancy, he was the cheaper alternative. Is that really the kind of decision you want to be making given where your offense is at this point in time? And the confusion extends to Juju Smith-Schuster just had a 900-yard season, good season, in what is essentially and probably will be for a long time, to a large degree, a freelancing style of offense with Patrick Mahomes behind center in Kansas City. Plays get extended, scrambling behind the line of scrimmage, lots of time to uncover, makes it very difficult for opposing defenses to cover. So you can function in that offense. Congratulations. The Patriots offense is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from that one. So can Juju Smith-Schuster get open on time? We know Jacoby Myers could. We know Jacoby Myers would be on the field. Tough. Juju Smith-Schuster also tough, but he's had a litany of injuries. I would say the foremost being concussion issues that could potentially sap him of some time. Myers was just viewed as the epitome of what the Patriots want. How Bill Belichick described Jonathan Jones at this year's owners' meetings, if you want to go back to that quote. He's everything that the Patriots want. Jacoby Myers is the offensive version, essentially, of Jonathan Jones. Slot guys, undrafted guys, do everything right. One's here, one isn't. Bottom line, again, the expectation is whether his primary weapon from last year is here or not, Mac Jones will be the starter, but they have to get to work adding some talent around him to get the most out of him. All right, let's shift gears here. I'm sure we'll continue to have added notes on the Mac Jones situation moving forward, and we'll lay them out as we get them. But let's move on to our mock draft roundup. We've got Lance Zierlein having the Patriots take Anthony Richardson with 14 overall. He's looking at this tension with Mac Jones saying Bill Belichick is moving on, baby, and he's going to go with the complete polar opposite player and Anthony Richardson, the most impressive height, weight, speed player at this position, maybe in draft history, maybe. And about as far on the other end of the spectrum as you could get when it comes to polish as a passer, Anthony Richardson versus Mac Jones. Lack of experience. He would not qualify a number of different metrics that the Patriots have drafted before. We list him in our prototypical Patriots series. He wasn't there because he doesn't have the experience level. He hasn't had the accuracy in terms of completion percentage, those types of things that the Patriots are looking for. So I would highly, highly, highly doubt that this would happen. But it's fun to talk about. It's fun to think about. Would they be willing to pivot in that way? Completely change their offense? Run something along the lines of what, I think people look at Lamar and say that, that's what you have to do. How about look at Philly? Look at what Philly's done. Jalen Hurts was somebody who was viewed as a unpolished in some ways thrower of the football when he was drafted in the second round a few years ago. They designed that offense to revolve around his skill set. Could you do something like that with a souped up athlete? Richardson versus Hurts. That would be a lot of fun to watch. I don't see the Patriots doing it. How about Mike Renner from Pro Football Focus? He has the Patriots at 14 doing what? Trading down and drafting a running back. Bijan Robinson, maybe the best running back prospect in the draft since Saquon Barkley. Maybe better than Saquon Barkley. I think he is better than Saquon Barkley, quite frankly. I don't think he's quite as explosive athletically, but Saquon was always looking for the home run, whereas I think Bijan Robinson is going to give you a little bit more consistency at that position. The question for me is, Why would you ever do this? Even if he's a Hall of Fame running back, you tell me in the last 10, 15, however many, go back as far as you want. Because you might have to go back to the 70s. You tell me how many times a football team where two running backs are their two best offensive players have taken a team to a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl. Because that's what the Patriots would be with Bijan Robinson and Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson right now, the only player really offensively you have to game plan for. And that's how the league feels. I think the Patriots know that's how the league feels. I think that's how they feel. I think that's why they're looking at all these receivers that they're looking at and having them in for top 30 visits and visiting their pro days. Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith and Jigba. These are the first round guys. They're thinking about this. And we talked about it on last week's Next Pats episode. Corner receiver. That to me is where I would put my money right now. Tackle should be a need. They've kind of set themselves up to not have to fill it in the first round. I think those other positions, there are openings there. But boy, Bijan Robinson and Ramondre Stevenson, would that be fun? I guess. You're going to run a pro set under center, two backs in the backfield, like it's 1991. I guess you could. I don't think it works in today's game. You got all kinds of insurance. If you lose your best player in Ramondre Stevenson, Bijan Robinson would be your best player. So, you intermingle those guys however you want. Are you a better football team? Boy, this is the highest you've drafted in a long, long time since you picked Gerard Mayo at number 10 overall back in 2008. And you're going to use that on one of the least valuable positions in the sport? That would be mind-boggling to me. And I know, again, Renner had them trading down to do this, so they're picking up an extra pick later in the draft. I like that idea. I love that idea. Not for running back. That's my feeling on it right now. Even if he's a Hall of Fame player. It really gets back to the same conversation we had last year with Cole Strange. Was Cole Strange a good player for the Patriots? Did he have a good rookie year? He did. At guard, where you can, generally speaking, find good players later than in the first round. First round should be about premium positions, in my opinion. Hard to find athletes at hard to fill positions. Quarterback, receiver. And I understand if you say receiver is not that hard to fill. You can find guys in the second round. Okay. You're not wrong. You're really not. But it's become such an important position in today's game that you really want to give yourself the most wiggle room, the most room for error possible. And so by taking one of the 2 or 3 best in a given draft class would seemingly give you that. And if you look at the last few drafts, really 2019 excluded, you go from there, 2020, 2021, 2022, if you take a receiver in the first round, guy is pretty productive. 19, not so much. N'Keal Harry, we know, and Hollywood Brown. The second round was way better in terms of receiver talent and how it ended up playing out. But quarterback, receiver, tackle, edge rusher, cornerback. Expensive positions. Defensive tackle, if you want to throw it in there. It's one of the most expensive positions in the sport if you get the right guy. Can rush the passer from the interior. Incredible value. Not running back. Let's talk about Todd McShay, though. ESPN's Todd McShay has the Patriots trading back in his most recent mock draft with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jason Light, former Patriots executive, general manager down in Tampa Bay. He's on the horn with Bill Belichick in this scenario, and he trades up to number 14 overall. Now, McShay doesn't have a trade package that would go to New England, but it looks like, based on the trade chart from our buddy Rich Hill, it looks like it would take something like the number 82 overall pick, which is Tampa's third round pick, to go up those 5 spots from 19 to 14 with the Patriots. Here's Todd McShay on his reasoning for the trade, which I think is interesting. This is something that we should focus on because it takes us away from our New England bubble and it takes us into the rest of the league and what teams are looking for and what they might be willing to do, what they might be aggressive in doing that could impact New England if they're waiting by the phone and they're looking for a trade down. Here's Todd McShay.
If one of these quarterbacks, whether it's Levis or Richardson, starts to fall a little bit, That's where I would get aggressive if I'm Tampa Bay or if I'm Washington at 16. So that was my thought process behind it. Because I don't know that Seattle's going to take a quarterback if it's not one of the top three. And I'm pretty sure that Las Vegas is not going to take a quarterback that's not named Young and Stroud, as I mentioned before. So that leaves Tennessee as a wild card. And then if they get past Tennessee at 11, then, Washington and Tampa Bay are the next two likely teams to try to move up and go get a guy. So that was my thought process behind it.
So Tampa, maybe Washington. Now, Washington, you'd get even less because they're only moving up a couple of spots, maybe, if a player like Will Levis falls to the Patriots at 14 overall. They have to go from 16 to 14. You're talking about a day 3 pick. Maybe a future day 2 pick to get from 16 to 14 there. And maybe there's some value in that, especially if the Patriots are looking at it, they're sitting there at 14 and they see a cluster of 8 players that they like. Well, why not move down a couple of spots? If that's how really you have your board set and those 8 is strong, maybe that's a high number. But if you have 3 or 4 and you say, we really would be happy with any of these 4, we could take one here, or we could wait till 16 and see who falls. I like this thought process for the Patriots because I think the way this particular draft plays out, this isn't the case with all drafts. I'm not always looking to trade back, nor should the Patriots be. And they aren't really. Bill Belichick has traded up a number of times in the first round even. Did it twice in 2012 to get Chandler Jones and Dante Hightower. But in this draft, where you only have a handful of blue chip players at non-quarterback positions, I think they're gone by the time you get to 14 overall. And I think you could get pretty much the same player at 19. I think you get pretty much the same player at 20 or 25. And so I like this idea from Todd McShay for this year's Patriots. Move back, pick up the extra 3rd round pick, get Darnell Wright. That's who Todd McShay has the Patriots selecting. Love it. To me, Darnell Wright is the prototype at the position this year at tackle out of Tennessee for the Patriots because he gives you experience. He's a right tackle. I think you could keep Trent Brown at left tackle. Behemoth right tackle. We know the Patriots like that. Road grader on that right side. All kinds of power. All kinds of experience in the SEC. Absolutely shut down Will Anderson, the best edge rusher in this year's draft class. Maybe not the toolsiest, but the best on the best defense in college football. Maybe right there behind Georgia. But you know what I'm getting at. This is one of the premier players in the country. Darnell Wright shut him down. I don't know if he's going to be there at 19 overall, honestly. I think the league is a little bit higher on Wright than the media is right now. Don't tell that to Louis Riddick, by the way. Our guy, Louis Riddick, who during Super Bowl week told us how much he loved Darnell Wright. He thinks Darnell Wright is an all-pro potential player. If the Patriots can move back and get that hard-to-find position, that hard-to-find athlete, Darnell Wright, great athlete, good relative athletic score from our guy Kent Lee Platt, boy, that would be a tremendous, tremendous scenario, in my opinion, picking up that extra 3rd round pick, which in some ways is the sweet spot of this draft, I think. Getting that extra 3rd round pick by moving down, I love that for the Patriots. When they have as many needs as they have, when they are where they are as a franchise in terms of their trajectory, you could use a corner, you could use a receiver, you could use a tackle. I mean, when that's the case, you need as many picks, day 1 and 2 picks as you can get. So you get an extra day 2 pick, gives you a shot, gives you another dart to throw at the board. Maybe you get in a really deep corner class. Maybe you get a corner there with that extra pick. Maybe you get a tight end in an offense that's looking like it's going to be centered more around that position this year because it's a really deep tight end class. That leads us to our game. Would you rather? Okay, so we're going to talk trade up, stand pat, trade down. And we're going to use some specific examples here so we can get concrete with this thing. I know if you're listening to this podcast, you want to hear some names, you want to hear some realistic scenarios. We don't just say, well, we'll just trade back and get some extra picks. Well, why? Who might that be? Or just trade up. You need a blue chip player. Just go up and get one. Well, is that realistic? I mean, and if you do it, who's it for? And is that guy really a blue chipper, or are we just trading up just because we like the idea of it? So, would you rather? And we'll go receiver, corner, tackle as the 1st round picks. Okay, whether you're trading up, And I'm going to suggest that the Patriots trade up to number 8 with Atlanta. That seems to be a place where you could get maybe the first corner off the board. You could get maybe potentially the first offensive tackle off the board. And you'd really lock yourself into, in my opinion, you'd lock yourself into the first receiver off the board in a year where the high-end talent at that position really isn't what it has been some other years. Are you going to stand pat at 14 overall, or are you going to trade down to 19? We'll use the McShay example. Trade down to 19 with Tampa and pick up that 82 overall pick. So let's start with the receiver position, okay? We'll go through this together. So would you rather trade up and get Jackson Smith and Jigba? So you're trading up with Atlanta to number 8 to get this guy 6'1", but has the quickness of Julian Edelman and had the gaudiest stats in a receiver room that included Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. He is, to me, he's the safest receiver in the draft. And he'd be great for the Patriots in the middle of the field. Even though you just grabbed Juju Smith-Schuster, I understand it. That signing isn't preventing me from doing anything at the receiver position. I'm sorry. He's not that level talent. You don't know if he's going to be there consistently. He's still an unknown in a lot of ways. So, do you give up? It looks like, again, according to the Rich Hill chart, it would require your third and a fourth round pick to get from 14 to number 8 with Atlanta. That's not a huge cost. And so I could understand it if you might want to do that. Make sure you get JSN. Okay, so that's scenario number 1. But you're giving up, real pieces there in the 3rd and 4th round. Stand pat, say JSN's gone. Stand pat at 14 overall, maybe you're looking at Quentin Johnston. Now, this to me is the best boundary receiver option in the class. Am I completely 100% sold on him? No. I don't think this receiver class, especially on the boundary, has that kind of player. And I know we just talked to Quentin Johnston in last week's episode, and he was great with us. Is he the perfect prospect, though? Even he would acknowledge that he's not. This isn't Julio Jones. This isn't Calvin Johnson. He hasn't shown that he's that kind of player. Really explosive, 40-plus inches in the vertical, 11 feet in the broad, 6'3", over 200 pounds. Can go up and get it. Does he consistently go up and get it over other people? I think not as much as people would like in the NFL, but he'll break tackles. 40 missed tackles over the course of his collegiate career. That is insane. That's an insane number. So maybe you don't even need him to go up and get it. Throw it to him short and let him create after the catch. 7'3", 1-3 cone is going to hurt him in the eyes of the Patriots, in my opinion. They'd love to see a little bit better change of direction than that, but that might be your option at number 14. Trade down now. I think this is the option I like best. You're trading down with Tampa to number 19. You're getting the number 82 overall selection. At 19 in this trade down scenario, how about they get Zay Flowers? I think he's there at 19. Then in the second round, maybe you get Matthew Bergeron, the offensive tackle, who to me, he's probably not ready to go right away, but at least gives you some hope. Is he a starter right away? Like, maybe he is. You don't feel as good about him as you do Darnell Wright or one of these other first-round tackles, but I like him. Solid, no question. Then you're talking about maybe Sidney Brown in the 3rd round, the safety out of Illinois. You get a Brett Bielema defensive back. You didn't get Devin Witherspoon early in the draft, so you got the safety, who I think is a really good player. To me, he's I think he's got the most potential at that position. I know Brian Branch is a great Patriots fit athletically, just not quite there the way Brown is. And then with that extra pick, number 82 overall, you're getting South Carolina corner Darius Rush, who we love on this podcast here. Size, 6'2", 4'3", 40. Great Senior Bowl. He checks a lot of boxes for the Patriots. So by trading down, you're going from, standing pat, Quentin Johnston at 14. By trading down, maybe you get, instead of Johnston, you get Zay Flowers and Darius Rush. That's a move I'd make all day long. 7 days a week, Flowers and Rush versus Quentin Johnston. Yes, sir. As much as I like Johnston, he's not such a sure thing that I'd pass up a guy that I think could end up being a really good corner in Rush and a dynamic, explosive playmaker himself in Zay Flowers. Very different, obviously, from Quentin Johnston. But boy, I'd do that in a heartbeat. I love the trade down scenario there. How about a corner? All right, so let's say, would you rather trade up for Devin Witherspoon, who I think the Patriots would love, It just hammers people. He tackles. He just ran in the low 4.4s at his pro day. He's undersized a little bit, but he weighed in at 185 pounds, better than the 181 he weighed in at the combine. Is he going to be able to lock down, an A.J. Brown type? He might be a little undersized to do that, honestly, but he's so aggressive and he's so quick to click and close. And we know how important the feet are. We talked about this on the pod. Jack Jones, Marcus Jones, what do these guys have in common? They're so quick to transition. And I see Witherspoon the same way, but with an aggressive mindset and ball skills that are really, really valuable. Would you trade up? Would you give up that 3rd and 4th to get up to number 8, where Atlanta is, to get Devin Witherspoon? Or maybe it's Christian Gonzalez, who doesn't have that same dog in him that Witherspoon has. But I think the Patriots would love the physical skill set, bigger body, great speed. I would think about that. I really would. For a team that really values that number 1 cover corner, whether it was Darrelle Revis or Aqib Talib or Stephon Gilmore over the years, a 3rd and a 4th to make sure you got a number 1, which I think both those guys are. Heck yeah, sign me up. I'd rather that, honestly, than the stand pat option with Joey Porter, who I like and is a scheme fit for the Patriots, all kinds of length, better athlete than I think people give him credit for, but a little grabby, maybe not the change of direction that I think you need to be a really great player at that position. I think the real question is, would you rather trade up and get Witherspoon or trade down and listen to the haul that you could get by trading down? You could trade down to 19 overall and get Deonte Banks. Again, physical freak, 6 feet in the 4.3s and the 40, physical, great tackler, one of the most efficient tacklers in college football last year, has dealt with some injury, but like him a lot as a player. Back half of round 1, yes, please. Then in the 2nd round, maybe you get Jahmyr Gibbs. 3rd round, maybe you get Michael Wilson, the receiver out of Stanford. So you've taken care of that receiver need that you feel you may have. And then with that extra pick, that number 82 overall pick, you get Tyler Steen, the tackle out of Alabama. So the would you rather is trade up, lose a couple pieces for Devin Witherspoon, stand pat for Joey Porter, or trade down and get Deonte Banks and Tyler Steen. I think in that scenario, I actually like the trade up option best. I think I do. I've truly fallen in love. He is the definition of a draft crush, Devin Witherspoon, because I think, not only do I like him, but he's the kind of player that the Patriots would really like. And you have the Brett Bielema connection, all of it. 0-star recruit, chip on his shoulder. Woo! I actually like the trade up scenario there, maybe best of those 3 options. Now, let's go with the last one here. Offensive tackle. You could trade up, maybe get Peter Skoronski, make sure you get that guy. Solid, rock solid prospect. But is he a tackle? Is he a guard? He could play anywhere really well, in my opinion. But do you feel great about him at tackle long term? And if you don't, is it worth the trade up? Stand pat, maybe get Broderick Jones. Patriots are hosting him on a top 30 visit. All kinds of traits. Not quite as experienced as some other players. 19 starts at tackle, but it's in the SEC. It's at Georgia. He could run block. You can't say that about a lot of guys in this draft class or any draft class. How about the trade down option? Would you rather trade down? Trade down, and as McShay has provided us, get Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. Athlete, size, experience, Senior Bowl performance. Woo! Boxes, check, 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 check. Okay, and then maybe in the 2nd round, you get Sam Laporta, the tight end out of Iowa. Maybe you get Quan Martin, the defensive back out of Illinois, with your 1st, 3rd round pick. And then with that extra 3rd rounder, that number 82 overall that you got from Tampa, maybe you get Jonathan Mingo, the receiver out of Ole Miss, who we've talked about on the pod before, struck offensive evaluators as a Patriots type in combine meetings. Patriots have gotten a close look at him. SEC guy, tremendous athlete, maybe one of the 2 or 3 best pound for pound athletes across positions at this year's combine. Relative athletic score through the roof. Numbers not always there, but 6'2", 220 pounds with a ton of speed and a willingness to get physical in the run game, to block, the athleticism to break away from defenders and make big plays. Really like Mingo. Or how about even A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest? Another big body player with all kinds of athleticism that could give them something outside of Devontae Parker to play on the outside. Does Tyquan Thornton want to live there? Do you want to use him as a Z? You want to put him in motion, use him inside and out? If Parker misses time, who's their true boundary player? I think, there's value in adding both on the boundary and on the inside, quite frankly. I think they have a lot of Z options. They've got Kendrick Bourne. They've got Tyquan Thornton. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, who is really, truly a slot to me, but he's a big slot. I think you need somebody who can separate quickly, and I think you need a down-the-field vertical threat for when Devontae Parker's not around. And maybe he makes whoever that is, if you do add one and you add him early, maybe it makes Devontae Parker expendable. Again, I get back to the question I asked Daniel Jeremiah about the receiver group in this year's draft and who might complement. This was on a podcast earlier this offseason. Who might complement the Patriots receiving core with what they have already? And he said, should they be in the complement business or should they be in the replacement business? Because there's nobody on the roster. The reality is there's nobody on the roster now that should prevent them from attacking talent at that position. Inside, Z, outside, doesn't matter. So would you rather up for Skoronski, stand pat for Broderick Jones, or trade down and end up with Darnell Wright and Jonathan Mingo? I'm going down again there. So I just think that's a fun exercise. And we could do this all day long. And thanks to Pro Football Focus, using their mock draft simulator, helping us figure out, okay, who might even be available at number 82 overall. But to me, based on where this draft is in terms of its depth, especially at corner, maybe at tight end, day 2 is looking pretty meaty. And so if you can attack one of those positions of need, one of those rare spots on day 1, get yourself a difference maker on day 1, but also trade down in the process and pick up a day 2 pick in this year's draft, at least, I like that idea. All right. We have kept you long enough. We've kept you waiting long enough. Let's get to our interview with Tyler Scott. This guy is tremendous. Again, undersized, 5'9", 5'9.5". So we'll call him 5'10", 177 pounds. He would be the lightest receiver Bill Belichick has ever drafted, but a 4.4, 4.40, a 1.5, 10-yard split. That is phenomenal. That is 85th percentile over the course of the last 20 years of combine data that we have. A 39.5-inch vertical. That is 92nd percentile. And a 133-inch broad jump. That is 97th percentile. This guy is explosive. Former running back. He's got a track background that we talk about. Boy, and the Patriots know him, and they know him well. Ross Douglas, who helps coach the receivers in New England, from right around that same area, Northeast Ohio, just outside of Cleveland. There's a relationship there. Ross Douglas was scheduled to go to the Cincinnati Pro Day to get to know and chat with Tyler Scott even a little bit more. So if you can't get Zay Flowers in the first round, and maybe you're looking for that explosive presence in the second or third, Tyler Scott to me is a phenomenal option. I think you're going to feel the same way, especially after you hear this conversation. You're really going to enjoy it. Here's Tyler Scott. Very excited now to welcome into the Next Pats podcast, Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati, wide receiver in this year's draft class, one of the most explosive receivers in this year's draft class. Tyler, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on.
I should ask you, I term your game as explosive. That's the first word that comes to mind for me. And obviously there are scouts, NFL evaluators that are watching you closely, that are writing up their reports. There's other media people that are out there that are dissecting your game. But let's get the Tyler Scott scouting report on Tyler Scott. How would you describe your game for maybe some of our listeners who haven't had the opportunity to watch you play it, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head with the explosiveness and, speed as well. That's a big one. That's kind of what my trademark is, my speed and my, ability to spark big plays and things of that nature. I had a crazy stat when I was in college. I averaged like 43 yards a touchdown catch, which, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. So that's a little bit of me, speed, explosive, big playmaking ability. And don't forget special teams. I'm very, very in tune with special teams as well.
And that's important, I'm sure, this time of year as you're meeting with teams, as they're building out those scouting reports on you. Just the willingness to play special teams is big. I know with teams, especially with the team that we're focused on here in New England with the Patriots. If you can play on fourth down, you're going to have a role for Bill Belichick. When it comes to your big play ability, though, I mean, those long touchdowns, they're all over your tape, right? And you can pull up any Tyler Scott highlight on the internet right now, and you could find a bunch of them. I want to know, Tyler, what goes into the very, very early stages of those types of plays, those routes specifically, where you do end up 3, 4, 5 yards behind the defense and making a huge play for a score? What's your mentality when you're at the line of scrimmage and you know, okay, you got a fade or you have a post or whatever the call is in the huddle, you have a chance to make an explosive play? What's going through your brain at the line?
Yeah, well, I think it first starts out during the week in your film preparation. Just kind of knowing what's in front of you, seeing what's in front of you, and just kind of getting an idea what to expect. And so, if you do a good job of studying and, hopefully you get the right play call at the right time versus the right defense, that's just kind of the best feeling. You know what you see and like, oh yeah, this is exactly what I want. You get the right leverage, you get the right look. And then, it's a mind game out there. You're playing receiver. It's a mind game between you and the DB. And so, he doesn't know where you're going. And so, really it's just trying to figure out how can I make him think one thing and do another. And so, that's what I kind of, love about the receiver positions. And it's just kind of the, you got to be a great actor, you got to be a great actor. And so, so I'm at the line. It's just, okay, I see what I see. I like what I see. And how can I end up 3 yards behind him and, make him look dumb on film?
Well, you get some Oscar-winning chops, man, when it comes to being an actor on the field there. If you could you recite for us, let's stick with that acting theme. Could you recite for us, Tyler, your favorite play call? You go into the huddle, your favorite play call at Cincinnati was what? And what was your role in that play?
Yeah, well, so at Cincinnati, we did hand signals. But just off the top of my head, as far as play, I would love to go 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, heavy set, running back, under the center, quarterback under center, no shotgun. And we're gonna call track right, a track left, and we're gonna go Iowa high, and we're gonna say Phyllis. And Phyllis is basically for those that are football connoisseurs. Phyllis is a quarters beater, so you got a post to the field, which is what I'm gonna run, and then you have we call it a in route, a 10 to 12 yard in route by the near tight end. So basically that takes away the safety that's usually over top. Hopefully in quarters coverage, he's over top. That takes away the safety. The tight end occupies him. And then it's basically just one-on-one with me and the receiver outside with outside leverage. And if you got outside leverage on the post, then you should win that route. And so, that's where the big post comes into play. And so the play is going to start. It's going to be play action, hopefully to get those safeties, feet stuck in cement. Going to play action, and then that gives me time to do what I need to do and win one-on-one and hopefully win deep.
I love that. And on that play in particular, you're talking about the tight end running that in route. Would that tight end be your side of the field? Is he coming from that field side of the formation, Tyler, or is he coming across the middle, whereas you're going sort of the opposite way on your post?
Yep, he's on the field side with me.
Okay.
He's on the field side with me, and he's going to take away that near safety where I'm at. He's going to take away that near safety so he doesn't have help over top and doesn't zone off to kind of help with the big post. And so basically that safety's eyes are going to be focused on that near tight end. So I have a one-on-one leverage and outside with that cornerback.
I love it. And then you let that speed, that explosiveness take over from there. I want to ask you a little bit about your background, Tyler, because I know you're a junior Olympian. Tell me a little bit about your track background. You're a track guy in high school. I know you're a 3-sport athlete in high school, but tell us a little bit specifically about the track background and maybe throw some track numbers at us for our track people out there that are listening. So they'll understand, just what kind of speed we're talking about here.
Yeah. So started running track when I was about 6 years old. My dad, he was one of the track coaches. He wasn't an actual track coach, but he was a shot put and discus coach. So he was a field guy, holds multiple records at Bookville High School. And so I got into it, started running really young and continued to run ever since. Had guys, Paris Campbell, he ran on the same track team as well. Those who are familiar with, he ran on the same track team. We had Tyson Gully. We had a lot of great guys, running with that track club. And so, I was running there from 6 all the way to probably my freshman year in high school. Traveled all over the nation. You mentioned the Junior Olympics. You have to qualify for it. You have to go to the districts, you have to go to the regionals, and then hopefully you do qualify for the Junior Olympics. And so I qualified a number of times, going to Michigan, Ypsilanti, Michigan, Virginia Beach, New Orleans, Humboldt, Texas, and Iowa, quite a few other places. And so, it was a great experience. One of my teammate, my brother, Trey Tucker, we grew up running in the same track club together. That's how we met. And so our families used to just get a big rental car, and we used to hop in and we would travel and just drive to all these different places. We would go 24 hours to Humboldt, Texas, sit in the car ride, going there, and we'll sit there for a week, and, we'll compete. And so been competing ever since. When I was 9, I was fourth fastest in the nation in the 400-meter dash. I want to say I ran like 109, something like that. Ran 119 at like 8, 9 years old. Also had multiple medals in long jump. I want to say when I was maybe like 11, 12 years old, jumped like 17 feet, somewhere in that ballpark. Also triple jumped as well at a very young age, about 13 years old, 12, 13. I was triple jumping about 40 feet. So that's probably my favorite, honestly, my favorite event in track and field was triple jump. Then moving on, I went into high school, and my junior year, it was cut short due to an injury, but came in at my fastest time. My junior year was 10.6. And like I said, cut short, didn't get a chance to participate in the outdoor. And then senior year came through, we did indoor track, or got a new track coach, got into indoor, and I was number 1 in the state in the 60-meter dash. Ended up running in the state meet, ran at 6.77. The state record that year, well, the state record still is today. It's 6.74. I ran 6.77, so I was close. And then also I ran 21.37 in indoor 200-meter dash. And anyone that knows that in indoor, the 200-meter dash is a lot harder than outdoor. And at the time, I believe that was ranked 7th in the nation. And so then COVID hit, and then I didn't even get a chance to run my outdoor season my senior year. So
those are some pretty special numbers. And the 60-yard dash one, I think we should highlight, because you're a younger guy, you're a high schooler, you're running that 60-yard dash, 60-meter dash, and you're 6.77. Was that the number there? Just for reference, because this is something that maybe some of our listeners and our viewers have seen in just the last week. But USA Track and Field posted a video of Tyreek Hill running the 60-meter dash, and that guy is considered the fastest man in the NFL, I think, by a lot of people. He ran a 6.70. Okay, so Tyler Scott, the guy we're talking to here, would have been really nipping at, in the middle of his prime, pro athlete Tyreek Hill as a high schooler. Very, very impressive stuff there. But again, you watch your tape, Tyler, and we know you're fast. I think what's interesting about your game too is you obviously, to me, you have the ability to play in a few different spots. You think of, a deep threat as being a traditional on the boundary kind of guy. But it feels like you can do more than that. And especially with your running back background. So you just got the track background, but you played running back in high school. How does that help you as a receiver, do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I think more so yards after catch, especially after you're catching the ball and just kind of having a feel of where defenders are. Obviously a lot different. Running back, especially when I was in high school, I seen like 8 guys in a box. You go out to receiver, you bump out. It's like, man, it's only like 2-3 guys out here. And so, you catch the ball. It's like, man, it's a lot of space out here that I'm used to. And so, I think it just helps for just the feel of the game after you catch the ball, just kind of sensing like where people are when you're running, angles, knowing how to set up blockers even after the catch, running down the field, knowing the angles that the DBs like to take, things of that nature.
Would you be comfortable playing in the slot then too? I mean, like you said, huge difference going from 8 in the box to 1-on-1 in the outside. The slot, you're probably somewhere in between, right? Where you've got a few more bodies, a little bit more traffic to deal with. How comfortable would you be if you were asked to play on the inside pretty consistently at the next level here?
Oh, very. I mean, I prepared myself during the offseason this past season, just in case that, I needed to have, be called on to do that, in case an injury, happened or anything like that. My coach made sure I was ready and prepared just in case I need to be thrown in that position. And so, it's going to be, a little bit more, seeing and, maybe looking at the backside safety, not just kind of your triangle out wide, but just kind of seeing the overall defense a little bit more. And so, just another challenge.
How exciting is it for you and somebody who plays your position, has your skill set, Tyler, to just see how offenses have evolved at the pro level, where we're seeing so many players who would be, 10, 15 years ago would have been quote unquote undersized, but have great speed. We just mentioned Tyreek Hill, but the game has become so much about space, and we see so many, jet motions and jet sweeps, and the screen game getting more and more diverse. It feels like every year. Do you feel like that style of offense and where the game has gone now is set up for a guy like you to thrive?
Definitely. I've talked to some former NFL players and some former DBs. It's like, listen, they've said like, I don't know if I wouldn't say they said they could play in this era, but it would just be a lot harder because of their style of play. Look at some of the better safeties that have played in our league. They might struggle in today's game because you're asked to cover a lot more. You're asked to cover a lot of these faster receivers a lot more than just to have to rely on the run game. And so, definitely it's catered more to me. And, there's a lot more emotions and things of that nature. That's another thing. A lot more motioning. So, you're getting, a little head of steam. You're just seeing so many different looks and so many different things are getting thrown at you. And so, I think it's definitely catered to, guys like me that are able to use my speed and also just to open up the game to create space.
You mentioned the kicking game earlier. I know you've got on your resume, you got a handful of nice long returns in your history there, Tyler. But is that something that you'd like to do at the next level as well? Again, it brings so much value to a team for a receiver to be able to handle the ball in the kicking game as well, it feels like.
Definitely. No, definitely. Like I said, I've been doing it since I was little, returning kicks always. Anytime you get a chance to get the ball in your hands and to make a play, I would love to be in that position. So no, definitely catching punts, kick return, whatever is, called on me to do. That's just another opportunity for me to, make a play because the ball is the issue. That's the most important thing.
Is there a player you model your game after, Tyler, an NFL guy?
I wouldn't say it's one guy. If I could compare, I'd probably say, a guy definitely like Hollywood Brown, somebody who's, speed guy, stretch the field, puts a lot of pressure on DBs. I also like Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, slimmer, smaller guys, but guys that are dogs and, are very well and respected in their own right. So those kind of three guys, I love those guys and kind of compare myself to them.
The one comparison that I've seen as well, in addition to some of those names, is T.Y. Hilton, who obviously is an explosive play waiting to happen. You can align him pretty much anywhere in the formation, use him creatively. So I love that one as well. And Tyler, what's fun about this and getting to talk to guys that are coming into the league right now, covering the team that I cover here in New England, the Patriots, is that the Patriots were really good basically for your entire life, leading up to this point. They've come back to the pack a little bit, a couple of seasons where they've missed the playoffs in the last 3 here. But, it's unlike most other teams where there's been one head coach here the entire time. And so any prospect, any position, doesn't matter who you talk to, everybody knows who the head coach of the Patriots is. Everybody knows his history. What would it be like if you were to be drafted by the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick?
Yeah, that's just a great opportunity because you just hear, so many things about the Patriots and just the way they run things. And, you get a chance to get coached by one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest coach of all time, so that's just, it'd be an honor just to be under, somebody like that. And so, it'd be a surreal experience for sure. I didn't get a chance to see him at the combine, but no, definitely. No, I would love that opportunity. And, hopefully I get that opportunity.
Well, Tyler Scott, thank you so much for being with us here on the Next Pats podcast. It's been great to get to chat with you for a little bit here. I love, and I'm going to have to use this. I'm going to steal this from you moving forward, but talking about receivers as actors, there's just so many old guy dad joke memes that I feel like I could come up with now that you have planted that seed in my brain. So our listeners will be cursing you for that one, but I appreciate it. I appreciate your time with us here, man. I know you're busy working out at House of Athlete, getting ready for the draft here, but we really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.